Hello there! And welcome back to another video! This week we're doing my first ever attempt to produce a piece with Posca pens. If you've seen my Japan art supply haul, you'll have known that I bought myself a couple of Posca pens while I was out in Japan, and this is my first attempt at using them. And you might be thinking, Candy, what do you mean this is your first attempt using them? It's been like 4 months since you got back from Japan. I don't think it's 4 months, maybe 3 months. But yeah, truth is I actually recorded this back in August. You might recognize my traditional filming setup from when I was at my parents' place, and this is why. But I didn't do this voiceover until like now, and college has been pretty hectic and stuff like that, so I haven't really gotten a chance to do any other type of traditional recording since I got back to college. So we're doing this for a traditional painting video, which is something that I had lying around for like 2 months or something. But yeah, my idea with this was because as my first time using Posca pens, I wanted to do a surface that I knew that they wouldn't eat up. So I got myself like this wood panel thing from the dollar store, and I was also inspired by, I'd seen a couple months previous to this, I'd seen Drawing with Waffles do a Posca pen illustration on a wood panel, and it seemed like, oh, so they work on wood panels, let's do that. And yeah, I wanted originally to do pure Posca pens, but then I decided that I wanted a black background, and of all the Posca pens I forgot to buy a black one, so we're using black acrylic paint and then the Posca pens. And then I also, you might notice this on the petal, is that I don't fill in the color fully. Like I don't know, I was too lazy or too sloppy or something, I don't know, I'm not the most tidy or diligent kind of person, so yeah, like it just wasn't, the Posca pens weren't really filling things in, like the tips are so stiff and they're fine, because I got like not the finest, but I got pretty fine Posca pens, so I really didn't consider trying to fill in big areas with these. So because the tips are so fine and the wood grain is like not, it's sort of absorbent and it like sort of bleeds and spreads, but not that much, I just ended up deciding to use a small angle brush dipped in a bit of water to help me blend out the Posca paint. And yeah, I just ended up, like, it was a struggle because the water made it bleed into the wood grain a bit more, but in the end I'm glad that I did this the way I did this, because I don't know if it kind of defeats the purpose of using Posca pens if I'm just going to blend them with the brush, but I still thought it was a really interesting process. I do want to try to do something more of like what Casey Goldine does, which is like flat things and self-shaded and no outlines and stuff like that with the Posca pens, because that seems really interesting. But I wouldn't pick the wood panel to do that with, and I wouldn't draw it at this scale. I'd probably try to draw it a bit smaller, but then I also forgot to buy skin tone Posca pens, so I mainly draw human characters, so I don't know, we'll see. The Posca pen colours I got were gold, silver, red, like minty green, purple, and sky blue. I didn't use all my colours for this particular thing because I wanted to limit my colour palette a little bit. So I used primarily red and purple for the rose with some white accents, and then I did gold and silver and the white again for like details at the end, but the gold and silver and all that doesn't really come until the end. I really like the idea of doing the gold because yellow is the complementary colour to purple, and there's purple shading the rose, so I like that idea. And I also like the idea of using silver just because it's shiny. It's nice and shiny when I bought it because it was nice and shiny, so why not use it? So yeah, my basic concept was just like this rose sort of profile. I was inspired because this was just after I'd gotten my tattoo of a rose. I got a tattoo of a rose because Rosa was my grandma's name and she passed away last summer, so I was really feeling the roseness the week that I recorded this. And yeah, with a freshly tattooed rose, drawing and painting a rose, it was just happy days. I did enjoy doing this, but it felt a little bit more like I had no idea what I was doing the whole time, and I was kind of frustrated with the stuff taking too long to dry. I think like I've gone over this in like every watercolor painting ever, that I just have no patience for letting things dry, and it just doesn't end well. It really doesn't end well at all. I think at this point in the video nothing's happening because I've left for like something just because it was drying or whatever. I don't know. It's been a while since I painted this. I kind of forget what happens, and I haven't watched it back before recording this voiceover, so we're experiencing it together. I finished enough with the black stuff that I wanted to continue moving on with the rose colouring, but it was still a little bit I think I just overfilled my brush with water at that point, so it just took so long to dry. And here you can sort of start seeing a little bit in the area that I'm working on with the purple. It's like bleeding a little bit upwards and in little lines, and that's actually the grain of the wood that it's like encouraging the bleeding. And with the red you can really see it right now. It was kind of annoying because I wanted there to be separation and depth between the petals, so the bits that are behind are the purple, the bits that are in front are the red that have like the white little rim light on it, so that you can really see the three-dimensionality of the rose. But I wasn't able to get these crisp edges, even though Posca pens supposedly specialize in crisp edges. That doesn't work when your wood is damp. I think if I were working on paper, I wouldn't have this much of an issue, even if I were using a brush and a bit of water to blend, because paper tends to absorb a little bit more the liquid and stuff like that, and it dries faster than this wood panel. So I don't know, it was just a really interesting experience all around, because the Posca pens are a very new medium for me, but also drawing on a wood panel, I think I might have done it in an art class at some point in school, but like I really don't remember. I don't remember ever using a wood panel like in all seriousness. So like, yeah, this was overall a really just interesting process. I feel like kind of disingenuous of using Posca pens like this, because the point of the Posca pen is that they're paint markers, so that you would get the opacity, like it's super opaque of paint, but in the shape of a marker. But I don't think I left, maybe at the end a little bit, but I don't think I left barely any strokes unblended. So at this point, like, what was the point of using the Posca pens? Couldn't I have just used the same brush and just some regular acrylic paint or something? But I don't know, I feel like the vibrancy of these colours is something that I don't have necessarily in my acrylic paints. I mean, I could mix for it, but I feel like I wouldn't be able to get it just right, sort of. And I noticed that with the Posca pens, when they dry, they don't change their colour at all. I know that acrylics, they dry darker and watercolours dry lighter than what they appear when you first put them down. So it was really interesting to just have the Posca pens that work like this. I wanted to make the stem and the leaves of my rose silver, but I was struggling again getting that whole even base that I also struggled with, which made me resort to the brush in the first place. And then when I watered it down, it didn't look as silvery and like gradienty, so I decided to do like a base of black that I would then kind of blend with the silver marker paint thing of the Posca, to try to get it to look like really reflective. Because here's a pro tip: if you're doing anything reflective, make the contrast between the shadows and the highlight really high, and if you have a lot of contrast between shadows and highlight, it's going to look really shiny and really glossy. So I was taking advantage of the fact that my silver was already kind of shiny and glossy because it's silver, and then trying to push the contrast of that to make it like really stand out and to differentiate the leaves and the stem from the rose itself. And I kind of like that the black kind of mutes the silver a bit, but you can still get a little bit of the shiny stuff, because I feel like the red with the purple shading and the white highlights of the rose itself stand out quite a lot, and the black also is a really nice backdrop. After I finished painting this, like it was 2 days after, I decided to put a gloss varnish on it, which I've also not done before in an artwork, but the fact that it's a wood panel and my mum has like gloss varnish for when she does like furniture restoration, it came in real handy, and I really enjoyed doing the gloss varnish, but I didn't include it in the video. I did mess with the like contrast settings and stuff like that of the video recording for when I do the final pan, so it looks like it has a glossy varnish, but in real life it actually does have a glossy varnish, just not the clip that I used as the result clip. But this bit that I'm colouring now was actually the most difficult, because it's like such tiny little areas and the whole wood is like fairly damp with the water, so I had to like really just like abandon it for a while to let it dry before I was able to do the final details. And I was trying to like pass the time by like finishing doing the borders in black, and that's another thing that I don't usually do, because even when I paint on canvas, they're canvas boards, not like canvases, so I don't have the tall edges that I need to worry about like colouring or anything. So this was like a kind of experience, and the plastic that I have covering the table that I'm working on is like just completely overrun with paint by this point. When I packed up all my stuff to bring it to the dorm here at college, it was like such a relief to be able to like bunch up that plastic and see that the table was clean underneath. Here I am with the original layer of the paint dry in theory, trying to sharpen up the edges to differentiate things more. And I feel like at this point the strokes that I did with the Posca pens I left primarily intact because the base was there, so there wasn't so much of a need to like blend it to cover up the wood grain look to it. So that's where I really like saw the benefits of Posca pens as Posca pens, because you just get such a clean, solid line that's fully opaque, completely covers everything you've worked underneath it, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And here I am re-adding some of the silver back to the stem and the leaves, and I don't remember if I blend that or not. I think I leave it, because giving it the like strikey Posca pen aesthetic, even though again, I really want to try to use these pens on paper and not depend on the brush. Here I am adding background elements. It felt like the black of the background really didn't fit in with the rest of it, so I added some of the purple that I used for shading the rose as a little like smooth effect, and then I went back to blending it with the brush because just the scribble lines were too scribbly to just leave like that. So I put the like pigment down and then blended it to try to make it look, but it's very subtle. And here I am finally breaking out the gold, and the silver might look a little bit gold because I was working in a really warm light, but in person like the gold really does stand out next to the purple. And then on top of that I decided to do some white, and I don't know if it was a good idea or not. I had this jumbo Posca pen in the white that I was so determined to use, and I feel like the white that I used from the jumbo pen might have just been too eye-grabbing. Like, I don't know if I have the Jenna Marbles too much gene, but like if I do have it, this is where it came from. There you go. I decided to try to mute those big areas down a little bit by putting gold on top of them, but then I hadn't waited for it to dry, so I don't know. I'm still a little bit on the fence on this, like these last like very thick touches, but overall I'm very happy with this as my first experience using Posca pens. We're about done now, so we're going to be seeing the final pan of it. See, I told you I messed with the video settings to make it look a little bit more glossy, and damn does that red look so vibrant, doesn't it? So yeah, this was my first experience using Posca pens on a wood panel. Let me know what you think. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.